Hi, I'm Hani Zahar. I'm an associate professor of biology at Washington University in St. Louis. This video is about metacognition, an important concept related to inclusion. It's part of a video series that explores how diversity and inclusion influence students' success and provides evidence-based strategies for cultivating a more inclusive academic environment. An inclusive environment is one in which students feel a sense of identity safety or confidence that their unique social identities will be valued, and that it's safe to authentically express their ideas. In contrast, a less inclusive environment can create a sense of identity threat among students or concerns that they will be treated poorly or unfairly because of their social identities. Psychology research has demonstrated that anyone can experience identity threat because we all belong to social groups that are negatively stereotyped in one area or another. Fortunately, the psychologists who study the causes and effects of identity threat have also created strategies to prevent and overcome those effects. This video series will discuss barriers to inclusion and strategies that can foster inclusion, with the overarching goal of helping you create an environment where all students feel a sense of identity safety. In other words, these videos will help you convey to students that their unique perspectives, which are influenced by their membership in a wide range of social groups, will be respected and valued, that they will be treated equitably, and that they will be evaluated based on their individual contributions rather than their group membership. This video is about metacognition. In addition to metacognition, this series also covers social belongings, growth, mindset, and bias. Depending on where students went to high school, the amount of advanced placement courses taken, and the quality of education received, students possess varying levels of preparation for college. Students may or may not be aware of effective study strategies or how to best approach learning. With the rigid structure of high school gone, many students struggle adapting to college-level academics. When you study, do you plan study sessions ahead of time or cram the night before an exam? After receiving your graded exam, how do you use that information? Metacognition refers to the awareness and control of one's thinking and learning. This includes how to plan, monitor, and assess one's understanding and performance. It's sometimes referred to as thinking about one's thinking. In other words, metacognition involves reflecting on what one already knows, what needs to be learned, and how to best learn it. It's helpful to think of metacognition as two components. The first component is metacognitive knowledge. This refers to an awareness of one's thinking and learning. Metacognitive knowledge includes knowledge of learning strategies, knowledge of conditions under which these strategies might be used, knowledge of the extent for which strategies is effective, and knowledge of oneself. Having a high-level understanding of one's strengths and weaknesses as a learner is crucial to be successful in college courses. The second component is metacognitive regulation. This includes being able to plan, monitor, and evaluate one's progress in learning something. Recognizing the limits of one's understanding allows one to identify and correct errors and pursue a more effective strategy for improvement. If you study in ways that are ineffective and you receive a poor grade, knowing where you went wrong and how to change your approach is an important skill. Unfortunately, many students show poor metacognitive skills, they fail to recognize gaps in their knowledge, and they use inappropriate approach to studying. A cognitive bias known as the Dunning-Kruger effect suggests that people with low metacognitive ability often mistakenly assess their skills as something as being higher than it actually is, leading them to be unskilled and unaware of lacking the necessary skills. Additionally, students who believe ability is fixed, what is known as a fixed mindset, are less likely to evaluate and adjust plans for learning compared to students with more of a growth mindset.
Hi, I'm Harshi Gupta. I'm a senior chemistry major and astrophysics minor, and I've been a chemistry peer mentor for 2 years. One of the tips I give to my students is to challenge themselves on what they think they know. What I mean by this is when they feel comfortable with a topic in class, they should alter the situation and conditions that were given to them and try to figure out what implications there may be. So, a specific example is when I was talking to my students about potential energy curves and how they're proportional to -1 over r squared. A student reached out to me later that week via email and asked, if this potential energy curve is -r squared, what implications will this have? So, by working with him on what implications this seemingly minor difference might have, we found out it would have huge implications. It would imply that electrons attract other electrons and that protons and electrons repel each other, which we know is not true. So, by doing this, the student got a better grasp on why the initial potential energy curve is the way it is. He told me throughout the semester he kept using this idea of altering the questions slightly, whether by changing the graphs, changing the axes, or thinking about substituting different values. Through this process, it helped the student on his exams, his quizzes, and his general understanding of the material because he was challenging what he thought he already knew and getting a firmer grasp of that knowledge.
Hi, my name is Alex and I'm a sophomore. I'm a biology and Spanish major and this is my second semester as a Calc 2 PLTL leader. Something unique about the PLTL problem sets is that they often have unconventional applications of the material students have been learning. In one specific packet, I think it was an application of the shell theorem, but I know that this has come up in other problem sets as well. Students get a problem that they're not super familiar with, and it doesn't seem to fit a problem they've done in class, or it doesn't fit a specific formula. All that the students want to do is try to fit the problem to a formula they already know. They can get frustrated when this doesn't fit the mold of the problems they've already been doing. With this specific problem, we had to take it a step back in order to solve it. Instead of thinking about how to solve this problem, first we had to think about how to approach the problem in general. In this case, it wasn't going to work to put this problem into a formula because it just wasn't going to fit any formula. So I had to address the way the group was thinking and change their thought process to be more inclusive of all problems and not just a step-by-step process that would work for any given problem. This way, they could apply this approach to be more successful, not just on that problem, but on other tasks where they got something they were unfamiliar with.
Recall that one reason students may struggle in their courses is because they lack metacognitive knowledge and haven't acquired the necessary skills to determine gaps in their knowledge and the appropriate strategies to use. For example, a common misconception surrounding learning is the idea that testing only assesses one's knowledge and plays no role in learning itself. In fact, testing provides the opportunity for retrieval practice, which consists of retrieving information from memory, thereby strengthening the accessibility of that material. A study reported in Science magazine in 2011 illustrated the misconceptions many students have surrounding the effectiveness of study techniques, including the traditional reading of text that many students utilize as one of their primary means of studying. In this study, 80 undergraduates were assigned to one of four conditions. In the first condition, participants read a science text in a single study period. In the second, they read the text in 4 consecutive study periods. In the third condition, they read the text initially, then used concept mapping with access to the test. In the fourth, students read the text initially and then performed a free recall test, followed by a second study session with recall. The concept mapping and retrieval practice conditions were matched on amount of learning time. Importantly, participants were asked to predict their performance in the post-test schedule to take place 1 week later. This provided a measure of the student's metacognitive ability. Results indicated that 1 week later, students in the retrieval practice conditions outperformed all other conditions on both verbatim and inference questions. Interestingly, for metacognitive predictions, participants in the single study condition and the concept mapping condition predicted that they would score on average 67% or higher on the test. And participants in the repeated study conditions predicted that they would score on average 78% or higher. Whereas participants in the retrieval practice condition predicted they would score on average a more modest 57% on the test. What the results showed was that reading and concept mapping participants greatly overestimated their performance, whereas participants in the retrieval practice condition more accurately or even underestimated their performance. In other words, participants not using retrieval practice felt familiar with the material and therefore judged their recall ability and understanding of the material as being much higher than it actually was. Students using retrieval practice while learning the material judged their understanding more accurately. Students' perception of their ability are sometimes misaligned, reinforcing the need to teach effective study strategies and provide feedback to students. Another study focused on metacognitive regulation among introductory biology students preparing for an upcoming exam. Students reflected on the effectiveness of study strategies used for a previous exam, planned future strategies for an upcoming exam, and then evaluated their follow-through of the study plan after the exam. Responses were qualitatively analyzed for effectiveness. Results suggested that over half of students, 51%, failed to provide explanation for why a particular study strategy did or did not work for them. 98% of students were willing to change their initial study plan for the next exam, but when surveyed after the exam, only 51% reported following through with parts of their plan. When asked why they did not follow through with the plan, the following are examples of students' replies. Although I plan to read over these questions and do the study questions every week, instead I assumed I understood it because I could explain it, but I struggled applying it. I didn't read as much of the textbook as I would have liked. It's super painful to read. I didn't have much time and did not get around to it when I did have time. Hence, even when presented with information about effective study strategies and prompted to make a plan, many students still struggle to follow through with their plans. Based on these results, the author of this study proposed a model depicting students at different stages along a continuum of metacognitive regulation. A small amount of students were placed in the not engaging category, as they saw no reason to alter their approach to studying and did not select new learning strategies. The author hypothesized that students in the not engaging category may believe that success is in the instructor's hand, not theirs. Additionally, these students may lack the ability to assess what they do and do not know. The second category along the continuum places a large number of students in the struggling category. Students placed here show a willingness to change study strategies, but often selected approaches that were ineffective or they did not follow through with plans. The author hypothesized that students in the struggling category lack metacognitive knowledge. The third category along the continuum, the emerging category, also characterized a large number of students. Students in this category recognized their need to try new strategies and selected appropriate ones. The issue, however, is that the emerging students did not always follow through on their plans. The author hypothesized that this because the students lack procedural knowledge in how to use all of the learning strategies. The final category along the continuum is the developing category. A small number of students were placed here if they recognized the need for new strategies, selected appropriate ones, and successfully followed through with them. The author mentioned that students in the developing categories were focused on learning the material instead of earning a high grade. In other words, these students used a mastery approach instead of a performance-based approach when learning the material. To summarize, students fall along the continuum in their metacognitive regulation ability. Many students will fall in the middle categories along the continuum. Hence, continuously working with students to practice effective study strategies and modeling successful metacognitive regulation is crucial. Additionally, helping students to follow through and gain a deep understanding of the material can improve their learning outcomes. To help students develop good metacognitive skills, here's a few things you can do. 1. Discuss with students that effective study strategies are more effortful, but that effort is an indication that students are challenging themselves and learning more deeply. 2. Model the thinking process involved in solving problems successfully. Encourage students to tell the group when they are confused. 3. Explain that multitasking or task switching has been shown to impair learning. Address the use of phones and computers during your sessions and while studying. When establishing rules, make it clear that phones and other technology should be put away. 4. Make students aware of available support resources. Encourage students to visit faculty and TA office hours and to seek help when they need it. 5. Help students identify problem areas and select specific strategies for improvement. 6. Point out that people learn better by writing their ideas down on paper and discussing reasons for why they reach their answers. Encourage students to write down what they found challenging during an assignment or problem. 7. Help students set goals for studying. They should set long-term goals in terms of how often they will study, what they will study, and at what times. Short-term goals for study sessions are also useful, including what the student plans to accomplish during a particular session.